G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Christie-David, and I run a mortgage broking business called Atelier Wealth, and we serve property investors who what I call are ambitious and sometimes frustrated when it comes to scaling up their portfolio. And as part of the journey, when we're talking about some of those headwinds, what we really want to do is assemble a dream team around a client. So someone that's either been there, done that, someone that has the expertise, for example, someone that serves in a particular niche. But the goal here is to help investors succeed. And sometimes it's quality over quantity, and sometimes it's subdivisions and development opportunities as well. Today's guest is a name that's synonymous with investing in real estate and building a property portfolio. Been in magazines, been in the news, has a great community of people, has a great brand, an attraction brand inside investing in property. If you haven't heard of Nathan Birch, you are living under a rock, I'm assuming, when it comes to investing in property. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the nice welcome as well.
I could keep going, but like I said, I'm not here to stroke your ego, mate. And it's in fact, as we said before you jumped on, it's I look at your background. So anyone that's looking at the video version of this will see an amazing backdrop. That's not an illusion. That's actually real as well. So this is coming from your home in Dural.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I could have had a better view, but the sun isn't allowing for it. So I'm just feeling
I think it's fantastic. It's peaceful and serene from what I'm hearing at the moment. So I'm guessing that the experience is something else being out there as well.
Exactly. I'm on almost 20 acres here, and try and be self-sufficient and living the lifestyle of how I want to live. And
unreal, mate. Congratulations. And I mean, let's talk about that for a second, because we are talking about property. Is this the realization of a dream that we come to buy to be in a place like this and call home?
Yeah, when I first started buying properties back in 2003, that's when I bought my first property in Western Sydney.
Yeah.
I was looking around at everything that I could have bought, and my income. But you're a broker, you understand when you go and type in a loan what someone's serviceability is.
Yeah.
As a 45, 50 grand a year income in 2003 with an interest rate of 7-8%, 9% at the time, it's a very limited sort of market of what I could have bought in Sydney. And I could have bought a red brick 3-bedroom house to live in, but it wouldn't have been the dream house, and I would have been severely disadvantaged by being stuck to that mortgage. So I went down the road of not even rent vesting, because I was living at home. I had the benefit of living at home and not having to pay a mortgage and that at the time. And I thought if I just had a simple strategy that could replace my income, then I could have that income then pay for the lifestyle things that I wanted. So I just set out to build an income stream. I thought it was impossible at the time, and then I just hustled and did whatever it takes to get there. And now it's the delayed gratification. There has been a lot of delayed gratification along the way.
And I guess people see this, and you talk about buying your first property in 2003. I mean, we do the math on that. What are we talking? 18? Yeah, nearly 20 years, right? It's a overnight success, 20 years in the making. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm constantly hustling, and people say, oh, Birchie, why don't you seem down to earth for someone that's done whatever you've done. And I'm like, I make myself feel like I'm starting at square one at all points, right? Like I'm always trying to hustle, always trying to redefine and push myself to that next level, and being vulnerable to learning, being vulnerable to growth, being, ability to move through different market cycles. That's enabled me to continuously grow. And I still work 20-hour days to this day. I do it for fun nowadays.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy what I do. And if I don't like something, I don't do it. So
beautiful, man. A bit of hunger in the belly is what I love to hear, right? So you're not going to rest on your laurels and go, well, mate, it's like got you this far, and what got you here probably won't get you to the next stage in your life journey as well, right?
I've made it compared to the old version of me.
Version 2.0.
The version 2.0, 3.0, and you just need to keep upgrading that version. So,
well done. Hey, mate, I want to talk you through your journey. So I know I said before I grew up in the suburbs. I know you're a suburb boy as well. Not a product of your environment, but I guess, evolving, adapting, and now maturing as a human and building a property portfolio. Take us on that journey. You said you bought your first property in 2003, for example, and now your portfolio sits at, over 230 properties?
That's just residential properties. I don't even talk about my motels. There's I didn't even think I gave you the background on the motels.
No.
But over 30 motels and pubs I built a motel brand in the last 2 years as well.
Wow.
Which is Yeah. So it all just started from a hope and a dream of, wanting to get ahead in life. And at the age of 13, I saw my brother buy a property. I've got 3 older brothers, not from a family of wealth or anything like that. I kind of fell into it. I don't talk about this too often out there, but I had a brother that kept moving house. Every 3 months he'd be like a troublesome tenant, right?
Yeah.
He kept going from house to house, and my other brother got annoyed with having him move all the time. So he said, look, I'm going to buy a house, you live in it, and you take the rent out of the wage, because we had a family business. And he goes, okay. And when he bought the first property, I was like, I want to buy a property. And it was 1998. I was 13 years old and I didn't know anything about it. And then I thought about it. I thought, how much would I need to earn to buy a property, right? And all these sort of things were questions that I had. And at the time, going back in like late 90s, early 2000s, an average wage was like 30 grand.
Yeah.
It was 40 grand, 50 grand, 60K. And that'd be like an 80, 90K a year income now. So I thought, if I want to buy a property, it's going to be tough. I'm going to have to pay for it myself. If I wanted to build a portfolio, how could I make the property work for me? So as for, building a portfolio, I thought to myself, if I just had 10 properties that bring me only $100 per week positive cash flow, I'd be able to get $1,000 a week, $1,000 a week, 52 grand a year. I'll be set. I'd never seen anyone do it. I hadn't seen, there was no podcast.
Yeah.
There was no Facebook, Instagram. There wasn't even realestate.com.
Correct.
Right? There was no internet. With it, I remember uploading something onto the Trading Post way back in the day. I was like, I was 15, right? And they asked you, what's your email address? And I remember my brother at his work, one of my brothers, he had an email address at work. And I was like, I just typed in his email address at work and he got into shit because I posted that on the Trading Post, right? That's how long ago it was. And I just had a simple strategy of getting 10 properties, and I thought it was impossible. But I thought if I just worked 2 jobs, I was happy to sacrifice the years between 18 and 30, which was 12 years, to work hard, do whatever it takes to get to 10 properties. And I thought if I could buy 1 property a year, screw up for 2 years out of 10 years, something good's going to come from that. And when I was 16, my dad died of a heart attack, age of 62. He didn't get to retire. And I thought to myself, like, you kind of got ripped off. And I didn't want to have to go and work 40 years of my life, 50 years of my life, and not get to enjoy it. So that's why I thought if I could just, sacrifice a bit of my youth, I can have those chances to do what I want. And I started with buying properties in Western Sydney. Mount Druitt was my first property in 2003. It was 248 grand. I don't own the property anymore. I sold it for like shy of 500 grand, like probably 9 years ago.
Yeah.
That property is probably worth about 900 grand today. And I don't regret it, but I've never heard anyone come back to me over the last 15 years in business either saying, hey, Nathan, I'm so happy I sold a property in the past. So property is a long-term strategy. Yeah. But I sold it specifically to buy my first dream house. And that's why I sold it for, just because I had no emotional attachment to it. It was just a financial instrument. And so I bought the first one, rented it out, bought the second one, the third one, worked real hard, saved the deposit. I had no understanding about how finance worked. I had no understanding about certain things. I just thought, work hard, do what I need to do to overcome the hurdles. And I got to about 7, I got stuck, and I realized at that point I went to a broker, and the broker gave me a bit of a nudge and said, hey, you can buy this property. And it was a little townhouse, and I bought the townhouse and I wanted to buy another one in the complex, and I thought only houses were good. But then I bought this townhouse, not really wanting to buy the townhouse, and I was like, damn, it's not the property game, it's actually the finance game. Yeah. Because without the money, you can't do shit. Yeah. Sorry for swearing. But
no, that's real talk.
Colourful language. Yeah. So I realized at that point that it was a banker's game, and I needed to fit in and work out. It wasn't what I wanted as a property. It's what the bank needed to give me more money and spare my base. And I realized very young that inflation was important, and time brings inflation. Debt becomes relevant with inflation, and the owning assets that get inflated away, it's not just the capital value of the asset gets inflated away, but it's also the cash flow that's attached to that gets inflated away as well. And I was at a point when I was 24, I quit my job. I had about 18 properties at the time.
Wow.
25 properties at 25. And I just keep adding to it. And now, I'm just playing a bigger game with motels and, like a game of Monopoly.
Yeah. A real life game of Monopoly is what it is.
I've never played Monopoly, right? But it's,
you'd be the ultimate Monopoly shark. But mate, congrats. And scaling up. I mean, I mentioned before, what are the stats? Less than 1% of investors get past 6 properties. I mean, you said you got to 7, you hit a wall, right? It's amazing you probably got there and then hit a wall, right? Because most get 2 or 3 and then they hit that ceiling. To break through barriers, now mentally it says, I don't think you've put mental barriers here because you said, look, the sky's the limit. But you and I probably come across individuals where maybe we are guilty of thinking small sometimes, not thinking big enough. How did you go from there to go, hey, look, 230 is not an unreasonable number, for example, or now moving into motels, like what I'm trying to get here is that's a real psyche difference.
Yeah. So for me, I've never actually sat there and said, hey, I'm going to get 230 properties. So my goal now is to be a billionaire by the age of 40. I'm 37.
Nice.
I'm getting there, but still a little bit off. But if I keep my hustle up strong enough, I will get there.
Yeah.
But I never set out to go, okay, I'm going to buy 200 properties. If you tracked down the 18-year-old version of myself and told me that I was going to be where I am today, I'd tell you you're a liar. I'd tell you that it's impossible, etc. But I just did what I needed to do. And I've got this saying, I don't know where I picked it up from, but it's new levels bring new devils, right? So every time you try and get out of a new level, there's a gatekeeper there to try and hold you back.
Well said.
Right? And it's just looking at how to break through that. Yeah, it's always looking at how to push forward and get out of that next level. So I get told no all the time, right? Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. But then I look at it and go, okay, well, what do I need to do to make that happen? And especially when it comes to like my investors today and with finance and stuff like that, people say, oh, you can't borrow anymore. It's like, well, why can't I borrow? So there's questions that, you shouldn't be getting asked from your clients as well. Like they should be asking, like people fail to think to ask those questions, right? People go, well, I was told I can't borrow, I can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
But if someone's asking you, well, why can't I borrow? Well, you're failing servicing. Well, how far am I failing servicing, right? Because then it gives you an opportunity and somewhere to work with going, okay, I can then earn more income, or I can remove something that's less important from my position that's holding me back. And I'm constantly looking at what can I refine in my position. And I treat my property investing like a business. I've treated it like a business from day one. Yeah. And
that's the goal. You see a balance sheet, you see the performance in terms of any business. Like we'd be doing the same thing on our respective businesses, going, what are the assets, debt levels, how do I move the needle in this business, and what have you got to kind of move around to then get an uptick in performance, whether that's you're chasing a lift in the business valuation or a lift in profits, for example, or cash flow. And again, it's very similar to building a property portfolio or an empire in your situation.
Exactly. And there's always something to do. A lot of people, I've found over the years, a lot of people don't think about pushing themselves. They just go, okay, I'm dealt with this situation and that's all I can deal with. But it's not, Yeah,
excellent. One thing that I'm really, I think this has probably come from now having my own children, for example, is intergenerational wealth through property. And what you're saying here is you grew up in, with all due respect, like a working class family, right? And now you've moved yourself almost to billionaire status within one generation. Like that is shifting an entire class in this beautiful society, right? So intergenerational wealth through property has enabled you to then live this life where you've got a wonderful home and a fantastic portfolio as well. How important do you feel that's been in your journey in terms of, I won't say legacy, but in terms of the way that you've shifted your entire wealth position as well?
I'd never actually thought about it until you just said it.
Right.
Until you just said it to me then, right? Like I never really sit there and think about it. But when you say it, it's like, it's 20 years, right? If I can do it, why can't anyone else do it, right? And it's having strategies, having plans, it's having the ability to make those moves. And I think a lot of people get bogged down by that. But for me, I started off by just looking after myself, right? By wanting to build portfolio, like 10 properties is enough to retire me and just be happy, right?
Yeah.
I don't need 200, but then it's like, okay, let's get to 20, let's get to 30, let's get to 50. It becomes a game. And I feel like at each level, there's been a level of like letting things go as well, right? I have to recreate myself as a new person. If you look at a baby, you said you've got children, as a baby grows, they learn different things. Every 3 months, they're changing. You can literally see the changes by a week passes. as a kid gets to about 12 years old, they stop growing. But as a human, you should be keep looking to reach new levels and growing and adapting and change to the environment that you're around. I know today I'm not playing for myself. Hey, like I should be relaxing. I should be on the boat. I should be, I don't have a boat, right? But I should be having a boat. I should be doing all those things. But I'm playing for the next generation, the generation after that, the generation after that. And I actually thought about something the other day about intergenerational, like people don't know their great-grandparents.
Yes,
right?
Great.
They don't know their great-grandparents or their great-great-grandparents. So there becomes a point, which I think might be in the next few years for me, which is like, okay, well, there's going to be 5 generations in the track. They're not even going to know I existed beforehand, right? So it's where does the intergenerational, stop? Because I can just keep playing this game forever. But there's a game there to play. And I know that for me now, I'm not playing for myself. I'm playing for my kids and their kids and their kids. And that's probably, where I'm at. And it is cool. It is good knowing that, it was created from nothing. Anything can be created. And, it's become a game.
Well done. Well done. I want to move to a different type of topic, kind of going, and I feel like these are softer areas, like the hard technical side on here's how to build a portfolio. I feel that's a softer, more unspoken skills that we need to kind of get from yourself as well. And one is the resilience around being an investor. So from 2003, you can easily call that a few turning points probably in your journey. So 2008 GFC, all the changes that happened 2014, 15, for example, boom, and then contraction with APRA interest only. Then the recent boom, for example, now we're going to come in maybe a different type of lending environment as well. So navigating these different ebbs and flows, how have you handled, obviously taking that in your stride, but how do you then impart that type of resilience to newer or less experienced investors as well?
Yeah. So at every point, right, if I went back 20 years and I hopped in, went with the crazy doctor and the DeLorean and go back 20 years ago, right, I'd be thinking to myself, like, the same things that I hear today would be the same things from 20 years ago. People were saying house prices are too unaffordable, right, because they've gone from 200 grand to 400 grand in Sydney. They said the interest rates were too high because they went to 9%, right? They said that, it's too risky. They could change negative gearing, right? All of these things that we're hearing today have all been said over the last decades, right? And it's funny because I've actually collate data and I've got a photographic memory, so I'll just remember things. And it's probably like a little secret weapon of mine because I look at it for data, and it's like the things that people I hear today have always been around is, what do you listen to and who do you listen to and how do you take that advice and what weighting do you put on that guidance? A lot of people will tell you, you shouldn't be investing, or they're fearful of debt, and they'll give you it from a place of love and care and all that. But I remember I was like 18 or 19 and I had like 4 properties. And I had a girlfriend and her mum said, Nathan, why do you keep buying these crappy rental properties in Western Sydney? Why don't you sell them all and buy one nice place out in the Northern Beaches? And I was like, because it just doesn't work, right? In my head, I was like, it doesn't work. And I thought about it. I tried to pull it apart as much as I could, right, and try and reason with it. She was giving me her view as, a non-investor, as someone that, is fearful, and their financial position wasn't, the greatest and all that. And she was giving me it based on fear. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. If I prognosticate and look at, how this will look like in the future, my portfolio was based on the fact that I've worked on the numbers. I've built out a business plan. I've worked out how many properties I need at what sort of price ranges, what sort of growth, what sort of rental returns and all that to get to my goal. I had a roadmap to work towards and I had clarity on what I needed to do in order to get to where I want to be. So I looked at it. I was like, hang on a second. Yeah, that's important that person said that, but doesn't fit into my schedule. It doesn't work. Your opinion doesn't, pay the bills here. So I don't want to listen to it. So always sort of take everybody's feedback on. One of my best mates is my accountant, and he's the most conservative guy ever, right? And he doesn't have any
sound
debt,
like a normal,
right?
Yeah.
And I think he lives vicariously through me, right? Because he finds something to be fun, but his risk is very different.
Yeah.
And he always tells me not to do stuff, right? And then I listen to him and he tells me the reasoning, and then I go do it anyway, right? but I've taken on his fear from risk and I've added it in and tried to make sure I'm ticking the boxes to minimize that risk and the fears that are genuine issues. And when I do it, I'll pull it off. He's always like, "You're my hero, bro." Right? But it's achieving that. And I think that there's a lot of negativity out there. There's lots of reasons why you shouldn't invest. There's lots of things why you shouldn't do. But I guess from me starting from nothing, I didn't have the fear. I had nothing to lose. What I had to lose was 40 years of my life working a job that I hated to have a mediocre lifestyle. So at that point, I had nothing that I was going to lose at the start. Nowadays, I always think, like, if I take this action, is this going to blow my legs off, right? And that's, very, very important.
Yeah, no, well said. I guess another part behind the whole resilience element is headwinds. I'll call it out. Media, for example, like a number of years ago, I saw an interview with Koshi and yourself, and I felt like you almost got hijacked. I'm not going to revisit past wounds, but it's like, I thought, wow, shouldn't we be celebrating someone that's kind of had some gusto and built a portfolio? It's like all the fear was like, what about this and what about this? I was like, oh, that's a very interesting perspective. And it's almost what you said there is someone's projecting their own fear or their own opinions or ideas. Rather than celebrating it, it's almost like fearful of what could go wrong as opposed to what could go right.
There was actually a lot of respect from my side not to be silly on TV when Koshi said that, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of his colleagues were my investors that I'd helped out over the years. And Koshi comes from I'm the smartest guy on the block, but I'm the man, right? I'm the big man on campus, right? And then to have like a 25-year-old back then to come in and say, I've got hundreds of properties and, other people that I had, I think that there was a bit of like an ego clash with the media personality, right? And it's like, I think that this guy's an expert at what he does, but I really question a lot of his things, right? I question his investment. I don't know the bloke, so I can't really comment too much on his position. I don't know anything about his investing to even know if it's good or bad, but I hear what is said in the media. Yeah. I've been on TV over 100 times, and I've had lots of things to say with lots of content in it, with lots of value to be had. Yeah. And I realized from being in the media so much that is, you've literally got a puppet to go and tell you what you can and not say on TV. If you speak outside of those parameters, then it gets shut down. Right? Yeah. And it's just interesting. I know when there's lies on TV. I know when there's a lot of BS in TV and in the media. And it makes me question everything else that's out there when it comes to media, because I know what I know, and I know that lots of things don't add up that I see in the media, especially when it comes around the financial markets. Mate,
well said. I feel like that's a very mature response from where you were at 25 to where you are now. It's like I'm running my own race, and I feel like that's a very strong message to be putting out there to your community and to your tribe, is to go, hey, run your own race and don't really worry about, I guess, what mainstream media is trying to put out there, because effectively it's an eyeball game for them as well.
If we look at some fun facts in the media in the last year, they said interest rates will not raise until 2024.
Oh, right? 100% agree with that. Yes.
So if we look at interest rates now, they were 10 basis points beforehand. Now they're 235 basis points. So in perspective, the cash rate was 10. Now it's 235. That's gone up 2,350% in 6 months. The media lied to everyone. Right? They also said in February 2019 that interest rates would not go down and the next move would be up. At the same time, I'd calculated the amount of liquidity in the system and certain things that were going on. I said they'd have to move down, and the time that they would. On the 4th of June 2019, the interest rates came down. And it's like, these guys are saying stuff based on what's their agenda, who's feeding them, who's paying them, who's their hand that's behind the TV, and that's really important.
Yeah, that was a great angle. So I guess your philosophy to investing, it sounds like you've maybe sold or looked at your portfolio. So out of 230, there's got to be high achievers, like I'd almost say 230 team members, high achievers, high performers, stars, and then you probably got some middle pack, and you probably got some need improvement parts of your portfolio as well. So how do you then kind of judge at a point where you go, hey, look, I might sell or I might keep that, for example? Like how are you assessing your portfolio performance?
Yeah, cool. So I think there's a couple of areas and aspects that I look at from that. When I buy an asset, I'm just looking at the picture of owning it forever is when I buy it. So I'm not a big fan of selling it.
Yeah.
But definitely over the years, there has been some that have gone crazy and there's, some that haven't done so well. I buy properties that are below market value. So when I'm buying them, I want to make sure that, there's a buffer in place. So if everything's selling for 300 and I pick it up for 200, I know that if the market goes down or whatever, there's a protection there. And there's also instant equity so I can redeploy it into the next deal. When I look at the properties that I've offloaded over the years, there's been two reasons why I normally offload them. One is it's achieved its purpose. I only bought it with the sole purpose of flipping it on. Could be three. Second one is that it's just got heaps of fat in it, and I just think that the market's too hot, and I think it's done a really great thing, and I can move on with it. Or the third one is just more of an admin. It just becomes annoying from an admin perspective, like can't get a tenant, something like that. And out of I would have bought at least 300 properties for myself. Actually, I would have been more than that because I haven't calculated any of the motels. So maybe 350 properties that I bought for myself. And out of them, I've probably sold 10% if I was lucky. That were just because I just go, I just couldn't be bothered with it, right? And sometimes I look at my portfolio and go, one or two go. And this year actually has been one of those years for me. And I know that I'll look back in a lot of instances and say, hey, I shouldn't have sold that thing, but I also got to look at the opportunity cost. Yeah. So I actually got one that I sold that's settling today. That's a sale.
Settlement,
yeah. I haven't sold any property for the last 4 years. I've got 6 properties that are being sold right now. And the reason being is I've got about 25 million worth of motels that are settling over the next 3 months or so. And I really, with those motels, I'm running the businesses of them. I've got the real estate, like one of them's got like 100 rooms in it. So I'm just like, well, if one little unit here or one little house there, it doesn't really change the perspective, but that's the options that I've got because I created that portfolio. So, I don't have any real strategy around selling them, but around buying them, the buying is very important. You need to look at the long picture. Yeah.
Perfect. I want to kind of go back to one point. So you said like you dated a girl and her mum said, look, why don't you sell and then buy maybe like a Northern Beach, like a good area, for example. So it's the notion of, do you buy more and have 230 or could you have 50 in the Northern Beaches, for example, or something? How would you advise that if a client's got that type of crossroads mindset?
Okay. Once again, we'll go back to the funding of it, right?
Yeah.
So if I look at the funding of it, I would have only been able to buy that one property because it would have drawn all my servicing.
Yes.
So I wouldn't have been able to buy the 50. Yeah? Okay. So I wouldn't have got the 50 in the first place. So the way I look at it is if the market was to double tomorrow, would I want to have $1 million that doubles to 2 million? Or would I want to have 5 million that doubles to 10 million or 10 million that doubles to 20 million? The larger the asset base, the larger, the result will be in the end. I haven't seen, like if we look at Sydney, for example, and look at, I don't know, Vaucluse. I've bought properties in Vaucluse. Yeah. I've got a unit over there. I bought a block of 6 units. They were 600 grand a piece. They're worth about 2 mil a piece now. So that's gone up from 600 to 2 mil. I've got houses in Mount Druitt that I bought for 120 grand that are now worth like 800,000, right? Yeah. So the same growth, probably a greater percentage of growth has happened in those smaller little properties. But the thing is that with that Vaucluse property, it was renting for like $500 a week. It's renting for like $850, $900 a week now. The rent hasn't been there to support the income that's required to get the financing. So that wouldn't have been allowing. Where if I could have bought for the same money, I could have bought 5 properties that rent for $300 a week. That's $1,500 a week, which you've got 5 tenants going up by $100 a week. Rent each. You got all hooks in the ocean. So I've always sort of tried to look at it with the level head of, okay, if I make this action, what are the different outcomes that would happen from here? Will it help me service? Will it help me get capital? Will it help me, how will it help me 5-10 years down the track? And if I do take that option now, how will it hold me back from being able to take other actions which could be more beneficial today.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting perspective. Thanks very much. And you mentioned when you're quoting some of the purchase prices that you bought in the past, people are just going, scratching their head going, there's no way you could buy properties in Mount Druitt or anywhere parts of Sydney from what you bought it for then. So I guess when you're looking at some investors coming in, entry level can often equate to maybe cheap properties, and I guess there's a real distinction between the two. You're either buying a cheap property or entry level. Like, how does that distinction work in your eyes?
Cheap is just cheap, right? You can have a cheap wallet. You can have I remember this guy that worked for me once, actually. He tried to copy my business, actually. It was a funny story. Yeah. I'm not going to give him any life of energy, right, for that. But this guy worked for me, and he pulled out, like, I had a Louis Vuitton wallet. I'm not a person of brand. Yeah. I don't even have, like no name on my shirt, like, just, try and keep it clean. But I had a mate of mine buy me a Louis Vuitton wallet once, and I was wearing it. And this guy tried to copy everything that I was doing, right? It was like really scary when you think about it, right? Trying to copy how I talk, trying to copy my story, trying to copy everything. And he went to the Parkley markets and bought a Louis Vuitton wallet that looked the same. Yeah. Right? I don't have the wallet on me. It's probably my car or something. Yeah. But he had this wallet that looked identical to mine. But within a month, mine was like 3 years old, and it's probably like 7 years old now. It works fine, right? Yeah. No scratches, like it sits in the car door and everything like that. This guy's wallet, after a week or 2 weeks, started to fray. Yeah. All the edges were broken, right? That wallet looked like my wallet. It could have been deemed as cheap, but it wasn't of value because it didn't last, right? So people look at cheap and think, okay, that's good buy. But you want to look at value, not cheap. Yeah. There's a big difference in value and cheap. So when I'm buying an asset, it doesn't matter where it is or what it is, right? I'm always trying to compare it to recent sales and other properties currently on the market. So you can only see from other properties that have sold what is available, what is selling, what is the market like. And I like to look at historical episodes in those markets. So whether it be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I love when I buy a property and I'm seeing it cheaper than what it sold for 20 years ago, because I'm like, something caused the market to go up. The market crashed. Where is that market now? And what is the story? What made that occur? So it's analyzing that data. So I look in Sydney and we see that Sydney, like here we are in 2022 at the time I'm recording this. And, if I said to you that you could buy a unit in Sydney for $265,000, people would say you're a liar. You can't buy in Sydney. And I'm not even talking Mount Druitt. I'm talking like good areas, right? You can still buy properties in Sydney for $265,000. The market has gone up and doubled in the last 2 years, but there's still some pockets which have been left behind. Those areas are generally unit markets in Sydney, but they're areas where migrants used to come, but there hasn't been migration there. So there's been a soft sort of market. And you can sort of prognosticate and go, okay, this market used to be worth 400 grand and now it's 250K. All we need to do is wait for idiots to come and pay 400 again for it. We've already almost doubled our money by doing nothing, right? Collect the rent. It's positive cash flow in the meanwhile, and it's low risk. So yeah, that's what I look at is in each individual market. I don't want to look for stuff that's, I see people go, oh, look, here's a cheap property. It's $200,000 and it's a retirement villa, or it's a student accommodation, or it's some other sort of property. And it's like those properties have got massive, massive risk attached to them because you can't finance them. You got 1 out of 1,000 people that would actually want to buy that property. Yeah. So that's the crappy wallet scenario. Yeah.
I mean, really, it's a good analogy. I think that's one thing that we always come across is people trying to buy, real distinction, cheap properties. And like you're saying, that they're either cheap or niched properties that make it very hard to either on sell or get the uplift. And then it's that distinction between, okay, you buy maybe a growth corridor or under market value. And that is a very clear distinction that you've made there. So thank you very much.
That's right. It doesn't matter if it's in Vaucluse or whether it's in Mount Druitt or whether it's in, I don't know, Tamworth, for example. There will be good buys in any market. It doesn't matter if it's in 2003, 2010, 2020, 2030. There'll always be an opportunity. It's a matter of finding that opportunity that fits in line with your goals, in line with your strategy to help you to get to where you want to be.
Thanks very much. And I guess the other question I'm going to preempt that I get from a lot of our listeners is when you get to talking about 230 properties, probably involve ourselves, which is in financing. So how does you talk about game of financing, for example, to really stretch yourself there, how have you had to break through barriers when it comes to financing as well, Nathan?
massive issue. It's always been an issue of the bank. So for me today, I use like commercial facilities. I actually haven't had a loan for about 5 years. And I just started getting some loans now, which will help with the next level of, I was sitting at a table the other day with some people, and they're like, oh, we buy mortgage-backed securities and stuff like that. Like I'm dealing with the banks is where I see, I think I have to bypass the bank and go to their facilitator in the future, because I want to get to billionaire status. No bank's facility. You got someone at the back end earning 50K, typing in your serviceability, go, this guy doesn't exist. I'll be spending 2 weeks there.
Well, the credit managers, in fact, they'll probably just put that into too hard basket and go, mate, I can't even assess this damn deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important to have a path of clear resistance. So actually, I've used one broker over the years.
Wow.
Maybe 2 or 3 other people that have done a loan here or a loan there. I used 3 banks that I went to, like directly, and then 1 broker, and then maybe 3 other sort of lenders that have got a one-off. And it's important. Like I remember going to the bank once, and I had 25 properties at this point, and I was 25 years old. And I remember going to the bank, and I just thought it was normal to have an Excel spreadsheet, right? And I had an Excel spreadsheet with the address, the purchase price, the purchase date, the current rent, the current loan, the interest rate, the weekly repayments, and everything broken down from a cash flow, profit and loss. Because that was like something I could just look at and go, cool, yep, there's my position. Yeah. If interest rates change, you just adjust a little bit. If you want to forecast, you can put another tab and work out what it could look like. And I remember going to the bank, and this guy, I was trying to get a loan for a $40,000 purchase, $32,000 loan, right? I just sold the place for like $250K. I was like, shit, I've held it for 10 years, but it's done all right. It's gone like 10 times or whatever. But he goes to me, I've heard of negative gearing, but I've never heard of positive gearing. I've never seen anyone come to me with 25 properties. It was like a challenge, right? It was a challenge for him. And he liked the fact that I had it all put out in a spreadsheet. And even at that point, when he did the loans, there was 25 rental statements that he needed to provide him, 25 loan statements. So all this information, you would be pushed into the too hard basket by just going to a normal broker or a normal bank, because there's too many moving parts. Like as a broker or a bank, they'd rather take someone that has 2 adults earning income, no debt, 200 grand deposit, $1 million loan, easy, walk up, I'll get you a vanilla loan, go to whatever bank. But they don't want to go, this guy's got loans at 50 grand, 80 grand, he's trying to get a loan for 50 grand from me. It's a mess. So I have it clear and concise so I can show it to whoever that I've been dealing with over the years. And I've given them a plan as to what my goals are. I can tell them any numbers because I've got them all there in transparency, and then back that up with whatever relevant docs that the bank would need. But it's always been about wondering what the bank needs from me. So it's not, when I buy a property, people, I think, get fixated too much on the property, but not what the property is going to do and the destination. And the destination is what's very, very important.
Yeah, well said. Man, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your generosity, not only sharing your portfolio, because it's quite personal, but you've been very open about it. So thanks for your transparency, but also just so you've been able to pay this forward with knowledge and insights and wisdom. I really genuinely hope that this helps some investors kind of lift up, play a bigger game, and probably shoot for the stars rather than just going for the easy path as well, which I think is a tendency that a lot of people can, and myself even take sometimes as well.
I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and he's at 18 properties, and he's done over like 4 years or so, and he was like kind of stressed. He's like, I want to get double my portfolio, right? I'm like, dude, you got 18 properties. We'll get you to 20 by Christmas, right? Yeah. Just get there, right? This guy's only on like 120 grand a year or something like that. Nothing crazy, right? Yeah. I was talking to him, and halfway through, I was like, this isn't a strategy session we have. This is like a counseling session we're having, right? And he goes, fuck, like leveling my game. And it's the second time I've heard that in a week, right? Like this guy was saying, I need to up my game. I need to, change the goalposts and the mindset. And I think one other thing as well, like once you've got a portfolio, you've got 5 properties, you've got 10 properties, you've got 20 properties. This is a game, right? This is a system that we're built into. We go to a 12-year indoctrination camp of school. We get told how to live our lives, be a good citizen, pay taxes and all that. is not to get out and get ahead and break free. I was saying at the start, like the new devils at new levels. The system is designed to keep us obedient and a servitude to the system, right? They don't want people having lots and lots of properties, lots and lots of options, right? And what I've found is no matter what problem I have, I always have problems, right? I always have adversity. The problems that I have, the same as what everyone else has. You might add an extra zero, so my problems might be a lot bigger than what the normal problem would be. But whenever I have a problem, I've got lots of options. The property is purely just an option. It's an asset, it's a vehicle. That property that I'm settling today, I bought it for 300 grand. It was in the Sunshine Coast. The reason why I sold it, I needed some cash. And I was just sitting there going, okay, what's got a few million to each one? I was like, this thing here, I bought it for 300. It's worth like 1.2. I owe like 200 on it. Give $1 million. People say, I don't want to buy a unit, right? I know so many people. It was a bulk deal, this deal, actually. I bought it back in 2012. So many of my clients are like, oh, I'm scared. It's a unit. It's modern. It's in a big complex. Well, I don't care. It's so cheap. I'm making money just by signing the contract on it. And I'm selling that thing today, and I'm going to put $1 million in the pocket, right? $1 million. I've got a building which is 100 units in a complex, right? The land value is on 1 acre in a CBD centre. It's 100 units in a block that settles in like a month. And I bought that for $2.9 million.
Gee whiz.
So literally that little unit that I bought for 300 grand, I've got no problem shooting it in the head, getting rid of it, taking the $1 million because I don't believe that it's going to be worth $1.2 million 10 years later down the track.
Yeah.
It's journey. And it can help me get onto another path without taking the decisions. The decisions that I make today are based on the decisions that I made 20 years ago and the choices that I had. We all have choices. We all have options that we're dealt with. We get 24 hours a day. We can be fearful. We can be, too greedy. We can be too scared. There's lots of emotions that can hold us back or hurt us. I think that, the options that I have today are based on those decisions that were made many, many years ago. There's no instant like confetti fall from the sky and go, great, you've made it or anything like that. It's just a gradual progression to have more choices and options and freedom to do what you want.
Mate, really, really good sage advice, mate. Thank you very much. Hard to believe you're under 40 with that type of advice, but mate, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all, Nathan. Thanks so much. What we're going to do is include details for bInvested. So if you want to reach out to Nathan, his team, and find out how they can help grow your portfolio, or maybe you just want to troubleshoot and break through a few barriers, whether it's mental, whether it's financial, let's chat, whether it's ourselves or Nathan. We just want to surround clients with good team members and great advice to go with it, mate. So Nathan Birch, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Easy. That's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. If you've found that helpful, leave us a review. And if you've got questions, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to answer them for you in another episode. That's a wrap. We'll see you next time.